Cadet Elias Keene stepped off the grav platform into the cavernous expanse of Vera Prime's arrival hall, the scent of charged metal and ozone thick in the air. Around him, 1,000 recruits moved in organized chaos, their armor clinking, their voices humming in dozens of alien languages. Above them stretched the dome of the station, a shimmering lattice of grav lights that simulated a sky filled with shifting stars. Somewhere in the distance, the low hum of the grand arena pulsed like a heartbeat. "Human," a voice rasped beside him. Elias turned to find a Zyrathian recruit, his segmented carapace gleaming like burnished bronze. The insectoid's mandibles clicked with a sound Elias could feel more than hear. "You don't belong here. You'll die before the trials." Elias smirked and tightened his gauntlet. "You sound like every instructor I've ever met." He adjusted the strap of his pack and stepped forward, weaving past throngs of recruits without hesitation. The crowd seemed to part around him, not out of respect but out of disbelief. Humans were rare here, new additions to the United Galactic Command, still viewed as reckless anomalies. At the far end of the hall, a squad of instructors assembled, each representing their species in gleaming ceremonial armor. Rithos stood at the center, his chitin shining under the grav lights. His mandibles clicked in an expression of judgment. Beside him, Admiral Thyler floated, his amorphous form shifting softly in hues of deep violet. Lt. Sauron's translucent figure shimmered with psychic light, and Elias could feel their curiosity even without hearing words. "You will follow the orientation protocols," Rithos announced in a voice like grinding stone. "The simulations are not a game, they are war in its purest form." He gestured to the massive holographic projection that rose in the center of the chamber, a rotating globe of star systems, each marked with scars of ancient battles. "Here, we decide not only skill but survival." Elias folded his arms. "Survival sounds dramatic." Rithos ignored him. "Humans are undisciplined," he said. "That is the opinion of the command. You will prove us wrong." The humans simply nodded. The recruits were divided into groups. Elias found himself alongside beings of strange shapes and sizes. Cathari with their Neuralink helmets, their fluid limbs shifting constantly. Thrillans glowing softly, their forms seeming half-formed, and towering warriors from races Elias had never seen before. They were herded into a transport to the simulation nexus, a section of Vera Prime designed for trials. Inside, the air was cooler, filled with a low vibration. The nexus was a cathedral of war preparation, its walls lined with consoles and projection fields. The instructor stood above, watching every movement. "Your first trial will be basic," Rithos explained. "Tests of reflex, adaptation, and strategy. Failure will mean demotion. Success will bring selection for advanced trials." The recruits were fitted with neurosync helmets. Elias slid his over his head, feeling the familiar hum of neural link adjust to his brainwave patterns. Around him, others adjusted theirs with precision. He glanced at them. Every motion was practiced, every thought rehearsed, except his. The simulation field blinked to life. Suddenly, they were no longer in the nexus. They stood on the surface of a war-torn world, skies torn with storms of plasma, the ground scorched black. Mountains of twisted metal rose in jagged formations. The air smelled of burning ozone and ionized energy. "Trial begins," Rithos's voice echoed across their neural link. Elias instinctively charged forward without strategy. The others moved in coordinated formations, scanning for weaknesses in their environment. He ducked under a sweep of plasma fire, rolled past a collapsing tower, and used the debris as cover. His movement was chaotic, unpredictable, not the precise, rehearsed pattern the simulations demanded. An instructor's voice cut in sharply, deviation detected, reset recommended. Elias ignored it. A Cathari beside him froze, neural tendrils flickering. A massive shadow approached, a simulation-generated warlord drone. The others fell into formation. Elias sprinted sideways, weaving between falling rubble, closing the gap. He slammed his gauntlet against the drone's side, sending it staggering. The arena trembled with the clash of metal. That moment felt different to him. He didn't analyze, calculate, or second-guess. He simply reacted. When the simulation ended, alarms blared. The instructors exchanged sharp words, but Elias only smiled faintly. He had passed the trial not by discipline but by instinct. Later in the observation gallery, Admiral Thyler studied him quietly. This human is unlike any soldier we have seen. He bends the rules without breaking them. Virithos stepped closer, mandibles clicking. He is reckless, dangerous, and I will not allow him to face Goreth without preparation. Elias leaned against the gallery railing, looking down at the glowing arena below. Somewhere deep inside him, he already knew his next trial would not be basic. Somewhere deep inside him, he welcomed it. The war games had just begun. Cadet Elias Keene woke to the low hum of Vera Prime's core reverberating through the walls of his quarters. His bed was a simple platform of alloy and memory weave padding. Around him, the room smelled faintly of ionized air and the recycled scent of station living. He stretched, running a hand over the faint scar at his temple, a souvenir from his first day in the Nexus. A knock sounded at his door. He opened it to find LT, Sauron, their translucent form shimmering in soft hues of violet and gold. "Cadet Keene," they said, voice melodic yet dissonant in human ears. "Instructor Virithos requests your presence. The next trial is set." Elias gave a half-smile. "Already? Didn't think they'd let me rest after the first." Sauron's light shimmered brighter, almost amused. "Rest is not part of your schedule, especially not for you." In the corridor, recruits moved silently, heading toward their assigned trials. Elias noticed how their steps were measured precise. His own pace was careless, as though he wandered through danger without concern. Virithos was waiting in the entrance to the training wing, flanked by Admiral Thyler and a handful of instructors. The Zarathian's mandibles clicked with each breath. "Cadet Keene," he said without preamble, "your performance in Trial 1 was unusual. Most concerning is your disregard for protocol. Most impressive is your result." Elias shrugged. "Guess I have my own way of doing things." Virithos studied him for a long moment. "Your next trial will be the Titan assignment. You will face Gorath." A ripple passed through the assembled recruits. Even Elias felt it, a shift in atmosphere heavier than grav pressure. Gorath. The name was spoken with reverence, fear, and certainty of defeat. The Galactic Titan was the apex of the simulations. No warrior had ever bested it, not once in the history of the Grand War Games. Admiral Thyler's voice was quiet but firm. "We will not alter the parameters for you. Gorath is designed to adapt, to anticipate, to destroy. This trial will define your worth." Elias gave a half-smile, but his eyes sharpened. "Good. Let's see how good your Titan really is." In the Nexus chamber, the air shifted instantly. Lights dimmed and the simulation grid reformed around them. Elias found himself standing in the heart of a vast expanse, the arena for the Titan trial. The ground beneath him was obsidian, fractured by great fissures that glowed with molten energy. Above, the sky was a swirling storm of dark clouds and burning stars. From the far end of the arena came movement. Not slow, not hesitant, but a presence that commanded attention. Gorath appeared. It was vast beyond imagining. Its body was a fusion of living alloy and psychic energy, a towering war construct that seemed to draw power from the storm above. Each step it took shook the simulation. Its arms ended in claws that could crush fortresses, and along its chest glowed a core that pulsed like a living star. The crowd of instructors fell silent. Even Sauron's form dimmed. "Trial begins," Virithos intoned. Gorath's voice echoed through Elias' neural link, deep and resonant, a voice older than war itself. "Cadet Keene, you will fall." Elias adjusted his gauntlet. "Let's find out." The Titan advanced. Elias saw its adaptive sensors sweep over him, the storm above reacting to its approach. Around him, the simulation twisted, landscapes folding and reforming, gravity shifting. Every instinct screamed caution, yet Elias moved forward. The others in the chamber would have retreated, recalculated, adjusted. Not him. He charged without hesitation. Gorath struck. The air split with thunder. Elias dove sideways, barely evading the blow. The shockwave threw him to the ground, but he rolled forward, using the momentum to spring up behind the Titan. He lashed out with his gauntlet, striking a joint at its knee. Sparks erupted. The Titan's motion faltered, but it adapted instantly. The ground beneath him warped, gravity shifted to pin him down. Gorath's voice was calm, almost amused. Improvisation, predictable. Elias gritted his teeth. He ignored the pressure and charged again, weaving between the Titan's strikes. His movements were erratic, unpredictable, not calculated. In the training wing, Elias was escorted to a chamber where simulations could be customized. Soren hovered beside him, watching with faint curiosity. "You understand what you have done, yes?" "I made a point," Elias said. "Sometimes the rules are just illusions, and illusions can be shattered." Virithos entered, his armor glinting under the chamber lights. "Your style is dangerous. The command must decide whether to allow it to continue. There are discussions already underway. You have created a philosophical crisis." "Crisis or evolution," Elias said with a shrug. That night in his quarters, Elias could not sleep. The image of Gorath's fallen arm haunted him, not as a trophy, but as a challenge. Somewhere within the council chambers of the United Galactic Command, debates raged over his victory. Whether humanity was to be embraced or controlled depended now on him. He replayed the trial in his mind. Every strike, every movement had been instinct. No pattern, no protocol, just survival. The instructors feared unpredictability because it could not be replicated. But perhaps that was humanity's greatest weapon. A calm alert broke his thoughts. Virithos's face appeared, projected in sharp clarity. "Cadet Keen. Report to the council chamber. They wish to see you." Elias stood, stretching. "Looks like the party's just getting started." The council chamber was a vast, vaulted space of crystal and alloy. Representatives of dozens of races were seated in tiered galleries, their faces fixed on him. At the center, Admiral Thyler's form radiated calm authority. Virithos stood beside them, expression unreadable. "Cadet Keen," Thyler began, their voice resonant. "You have done what none have achieved in over 2 centuries of the war games. You have defeated Gorath, but the manner in which you have done so has challenged our understanding of warfare." Virithos's mandibles clicked sharply. "The games are built on discipline, strategy, and predictability. You have shown that one can ignore all 3 and still triumph. That is a danger." Elias met their gaze evenly. Dangerous truths aren't new to war. What matters is the result. A ripple of murmurs passed through the chamber. Soren stepped forward. "This is more than a trial. This is a turning point. If humanity's approach is validated, it changes every future conflict." Thyler regarded him with deep intensity. "You will be assigned a new trial, one designed to test whether your victory was a fluke or proof of something greater. But more importantly, humanity's future in the UGC rests on what you do next." Elias let the words hang. He could feel the weight of every race's eyes upon him. Somewhere in the quiet of his mind, a voice whispered, "This is no longer training. This is war." He nodded once. "Then let's begin." The chamber darkened. The air pulsed with anticipation. Outside, across Vera Prime, the Grand War Games shifted in an instant. Humanity had entered the arena, and the galaxy had taken notice. The next morning, Cadet Elias Keen awoke to the hum of Vera Prime louder than usual, as if the station itself had shifted in anticipation. Outside his quarters, corridors were thick with murmurs, recruits and instructors alike speaking of him in low voices. His name had spread beyond the Nexus. Humans were being discussed in every wing. Not with curiosity this time, but with unease. A calm chime summoned him. The message was brief: report to the tactical concourse, immediate, V. Rithos. When he arrived, V. Rithos was already waiting, his segmented armor catching the light in sharp glints. Admiral Thyler and Sorin hovered nearby, silent observers. A holographic table between them displayed the shifting layout of the next trial. It was a design unlike anything Elias had seen. "This trial is not just simulation," V. Rithos said, clicking his mandibles. "It is an evaluation of whether your methods can withstand the highest level of the games. It is called the Ascendant Trial." Elias studied the projection. Entire star systems were represented, linked by war zones and battlefields, shifting like living organisms. At the center glowed a vast construct, a simulation of a war unlike any other, a sprawling engagement across multiple fronts, where battlefield conditions changed constantly. And at its heart was Gorath's successor, an adaptive warlord engineered to surpass even the Titan. "You'll face it alone," Thyler said, their voice like a ripple of deep currents. "No allies, no preparation beyond what you carry." Elias leaned forward. "That's the point, isn't it? To see if I can adapt." V. Rithos said nothing, his mandibles clicking softly. Sorin's glow pulsed with what Elias took to be interest. "You will be the first human to attempt the Ascendant Trial," Sorin said. "Others have failed before you. Many never returned." The gravity of the moment settled over him. This wasn't just another test. This was a trial designed to end careers and perhaps lives. Elias tightened his gauntlet. "Then I'll just have to make sure I don't become one of them." The chamber shifted, the air thickened. Elias felt the familiar neural hum as the Nexus warped reality around him. The ground beneath him vanished, replaced by an endless void of shifting battlefields. He landed in the heart of the simulation. All around him, war raged. Fleets of starships carved trails of light through the darkness. Across worlds, armies clashed. The air was thick with the scent of burning plasma and ozone. The sound of explosions was constant, a low pulse under every other noise. V. Rithos's voice cut through his neural link. "The battlefield is alive. Adapt or perish." A wave of movement approached. The successor to Gorath rose from the center of the conflict, a creature larger and more fearsome, its body an impossible alloy of shifting geometry and living energy. Its armor changed with every strike it endured, learning faster than any warrior Elias had faced. Elias did not hesitate. He moved forward. Every step was instinct, every decision made without pause. The simulation adapted instantly, throwing obstacles, enemies, and traps in his path. Gravity shifted, ground fractured, time compressed and slowed. The battlefield became a living puzzle of chaos. The warlord struck. Elias rolled aside, his gauntlet slamming into its armor. Sparks flared, and the creature adapted instantly. A wall of energy rose between them. Elias ducked under it, ducking and weaving past waves of attacks that seemed designed to predict him. But prediction was a human weakness. Humans thrived in chaos. He exploited that. Every attack he launched was different, a feint followed by a strike, a dodge followed by a rush. He moved without pattern. The warlord adapted, slowed, readjusted, but Elias kept changing. Hours passed. To him it was minutes. To the instructors watching from the concourse, it was a trial that defied expectation. V. Rithos's mandibles clicked in irritation. Thyler's form pulsed deep with thought. Sorin's glow flared and dimmed in fascination. Elias found himself at the heart of the simulation, the warlord before him now wounded but still immense. Its core pulsed erratically, armor cracking under his strikes. Somewhere in its adaptive system was a flaw not in the simulation, but in the concept of prediction. He struck again, faster this time. His gauntlet connected with the core. A blinding burst of light erupted. The battlefield shattered, collapsing into streams of data and light. When Elias opened his eyes, he stood in silence. The Nexus was still. The chamber beyond was empty except for the instructors, their forms tense. V. Rithos spoke finally. "You have passed the Ascendant Trial, But at what cost? Elias straightened. The cost of proving it can be done. Soren's voice was soft. You are not just challenging simulations, Cadet Keen. You are challenging the war itself. Thyler's form pulsed, slower now. You have made the war game something different. Humanity must now prove whether it is a gift or a threat. Elias turned to them, his voice steady. Let them watch. I'll show them what comes next. The chamber darkened. Outside, across Vera Prime, the air seemed to hum differently. Somewhere in the galaxy, a ripple began to spread. Humanity had made its mark. The war games were no longer a test. They were a reckoning. The corridors of Vera Prime felt different after the Ascendant trial. Cadet Elias Keen moved through them with a quiet awareness. Whispers followed him like shadows. Somewhere in the depths of the station, news of his victory over the Titan's successor spread faster than any orders from command. In the mess halls, recruits paused mid-step to glance his way. Instructors muttered in strange cadences. Across the United Galactic Command, the war games were no longer simply trials. They were a question. What is humanity? Elias was summoned to the Hall of Command. The chamber was vast, crystal walls glowing with soft light, layered with hollow displays of star systems, battlefields, and combat simulations. Representatives from dozens of races were seated in a ring above the central floor. At its heart, Virithos waited, flanked by Admiral Thyler and Soren. Cadet Keen, Virithos said, mandibles clicking in measured irritation. Your victories have unsettled the command. You stand at the center of debate. Some call your method genius, others call it a threat. Thyler's form pulsed with deep violet. Your victories cannot be ignored. You have altered expectations of warfare itself. But the question remains whether unpredictability is an asset or an uncontrollable danger. Soren's light flickered. We must decide what you represent, human. Are you the future of war or its undoing? Elias met their gazes evenly. I'm proof that war doesn't need to be predictable. If that scares you, it's because I've shown a new way. Virithos stepped forward. Enough. You will face your next trial. It will not be in the Nexus. It will be in the outer field, a test in real conditions. You will face not simulations, but live scenarios built by the command's architects. If you survive, humanity earns a place beyond training. Elias nodded. Then let's make it worth their time. They escorted him to the transport bay, where the air thrummed with anticipation. The bay was alive with activity. Starships of every design were being prepped, and holograms of battlefield schematics floated above consoles. Recruits and instructors whispered as Elias passed. Some looked at him with awe, others with guarded suspicion. The transport took them beyond the station's orbit, out into the outer field, a vast expanse where simulations merged with real war conditions. Here, entire fleets trained in controlled engagements. Worlds were recreated with living ecosystems, weather patterns, and active opposition forces. It was the proving ground of the Grand War Games. Virithos addressed him as they approached. This trial will test your adaptability under pressure unlike any before. You will not know your objective until you arrive. The transport shuddered as they entered the test zone. Gravity shifted, the air thickened. Elias stepped out onto a fractured moon surface, surrounded by warped terrain and active combat zones. In the distance, fleets engaged in simulated but lethal exchanges. A comm alert rang. Virithos' voice spoke sharply. Objective: infiltrate the contested zone, neutralize the opposing forces' command node. No extraction, no support. You are alone. Elias tightened his gauntlet. Alone, got it. He moved forward without hesitation. Around him, the environment shifted constantly. Storm fronts rose and fell without warning. Terrain warped underfoot. Enemy patrols appeared and vanished. The trial was a living puzzle. His every step was instinct. He dodged sniper fire without aiming, leapt over fractured chasms without pause, and adapted his strategy with each new obstacle. The patrols were relentless, their formations shifting to counter him. But Elias moved unpredictably, changing speed, direction, and technique in ways no algorithm could anticipate. In the heart of the contested zone, he found the command node. It pulsed with alien energy, guarded by an adaptive defense grid. Elias stepped forward. Every movement was calculated. They arrived in the zone without warning. The transport shuddered as they descended into a living battlefield. Elias stepped onto terrain that was alive with motion. The air rippled, grav fields shifted underfoot, and the sky was split with storms of light and sound. Around him, the zone shifted constantly, collapsing one battlefield and replacing it with another. Virithos's voice echoed in his neural link. You will face waves of opposition unlike any before. Your objective is to reach the core nexus at the heart of the zone. Failure will mean termination of your trial. Success will place humanity among the elite of the UGC. Elias tightened his gauntlet. Let's make history. The first wave hit without warning. Figures emerged from shifting terrain, fleets of spectral fighters, squads of combat constructs, war beasts adapted to the battlefield. Elias moved without hesitation, diving into combat with instinctive precision. Every move he made was different, every attack unpredictable, every retreat calculated to draw the enemy into missteps. The battlefield shifted again. The ground opened into a void where gravity fractured. Elias leapt across gaps, striking enemies midair, using debris as cover. Above him, simulation storms raged with pulses of energy that bent the rules of physics. Virithos's voice came again. You adapt, but so does the trial. This is not your battlefield. It will adapt to destroy you. Elias pressed forward. The trials grew harder. Waves became more complex, entire armies converging at once, defenses adapting in seconds, environmental hazards that challenged his every instinct. Yet he pressed forward, his movements becoming an unpredictable storm of their own. Hours passed in what felt like minutes. Each wave he faced tested not only his skill but his endurance. Yet Elias fought without hesitation. He was no longer simply a cadet. He was the embodiment of defiance. Finally, he reached the core nexus, a tower of living alloy surrounded by a storm of war. At its base stood the final guardian, a creature forged from the essence of every opponent he had faced. It was a being of impossible scale and speed, shifting form constantly to counter his attacks. They clashed. Elias moved without pattern, striking, dodging, weaving. Every move was instinct, every breath a gamble. The Guardian adapted with terrifying speed. Yet Elias pressed forward, his strikes unpredictable, his maneuvers chaotic. The core nexus pulsed. Energy surged through the Guardian, warping the battlefield. But Elias did not falter. He pressed harder, striking again and again until the Guardian staggered. With one final surge, Elias slammed his gauntlet into the heart of the nexus. The chamber erupted in light. The battlefield collapsed in on itself. Silence followed. Virithos's voice broke it. You have succeeded. His mandibles clicked with deliberate weight. You have done what no warrior has before. You have completed the collective trial. Thyler's form pulsed, deep and slow. You have changed the war games forever. Humanity now stands not just as participant, but as challenger to the command itself. Soren hovered closer, their voice soft. But what you have done is not without consequence. Every race in the command will now view humanity differently. Elias looked around, breathing steady despite exhaustion. Good, let them look. Let them fear what they can't predict. The chamber darkened. Outside, across Vera Prime and beyond, ripples spread. Humanity's defiance had reached the ears of the galaxy. Somewhere, a storm was forming. The war games were no longer a trial. They were a war without rules. The Hall of Command was heavier than ever when Cadet Elias Keene was summoned. Word of his victories had spread across the United Galactic Command like wildfire, and the air hummed with tension. Recruits no longer whispered his name quietly. Representatives from countless races spoke of him openly, some with awe, others with fear. Humanity was no longer a footnote in the war games. It was a question. Vrithos stood waiting, mandibles clicking sharply. Beside him, Admiral Thyler's form shimmered with deep violet gravitas. Soren hovered with an intensity that pulsed like a living signal. "Cadet Keen," Thyler began, their voice resonating through the chamber. "Your completion of the collective trial has fractured the unity of the command. Some call you a harbinger of evolution. Others call you a threat to order. They call for you to be restrained or removed." Vrithos's mandibles clicked. "You have bent the rules of every trial. You have shattered centuries of war doctrine. That cannot be ignored." Elias crossed his arms. "I didn't break the rules. I just proved they're not the only way to win." Soren's light pulsed. "They fear unpredictability, but you are more than a trial winner. You are a symbol. You have changed the war games, and they will not let it stand without a reckoning." From the elevated council seats came murmurs, discussions in alien tongues. The representatives of the largest fleets spoke first, calling for Elias' removal from the games. Others, smaller factions, called for his recognition as a new path forward. The debate was fracturing the command itself. Vrithos stepped forward. "The matter cannot be settled here. We will convene a tribunal. You will face a new trial, Cadet Keen, not one of the games, but of judgment. The outcome will decide humanity's place in the command." Elias gave a faint smirk. "Judgment, huh, sounds like another battlefield." The tribunal chamber was unlike any part of Vera Prime Elias had seen. It was vast, circular, with seats rising in tiers. The representatives of dozens of races filled the gallery, their eyes fixed on him. At the center, a crystal dais glowed with living light. Above it hung a projection of the outer field, fractured battle zones swirling in constant flux. Vrithos stepped forward. "The tribunal will decide if humanity's presence in the games will continue. If you pass, humanity will be recognized as a warrior race of equal standing. If you fail, you will be expelled. You will face exile from the command." The words hung in the chamber. Elias felt the weight of every gaze upon him. They were not only judging his victories, but what those victories meant. Thyler's voice echoed softly. "This is not simply about combat. It is about trust, order, and the survival of the command itself. You have become the center of something far larger than yourself." Soren stepped closer. "The trial will be different from all before. It will not be physical. It will be a test of will, of philosophy, of adaptability. You will face what the command fears most, a war without rules, without structure." Elias' lips curled into a half-smile. "That sounds like exactly what I do best." The tribunal began. The chamber shifted. The crystal dais dissolved into the floor beneath him. Elias found himself standing alone in the heart of the outer field. Around him, reality fractured. Battlefield after battlefield emerged, overlapping, merging, shifting. Entire armies clashed where minutes before there had been nothing. Gravity and time warped. Sounds of battle came and went without warning. Vrithos's voice came through his neural link. "This is not a simulation. This is the trial of judgment. You must adapt, survive, and prove that humanity's way is not chaos, but evolution." From the chaos emerged his adversary, a form unlike any he had faced before. It was not a single enemy, but a convergence of tactics and threats, war machines, psychic storms, fleets of warriors folded into one. It was the embodiment of everything the command feared about unpredictability. Elias moved without hesitation. Every instinct he had honed in the trials guided him. He struck without pattern, dodged without logic, adapted without hesitation. The battlefield shifted around him, war realities folding in on themselves. Still, he pressed forward. The tribunal watched in silence. Every maneuver he made was a statement, a challenge to doctrine, a defiance of expectation. Hours passed, though Elias lost all sense of time. His body was pushed beyond endurance. Yet he pressed on, driven not by protocol but by instinct. Finally, he reached the center of the shifting battlefield. The adversary pulsed before him, war realities collapsing into a single form. Elias raised his gauntlet and struck. The force was a shockwave of light. The adversary shattered, the battlefield dissolving into silence. When his vision cleared, he stood alone in the tribunal chamber. The representatives were silent, their gazes fixed. Virithos's mandibles clicked softly. Thyler's form pulsed slow and deep. Sauron's light glowed brighter than before. "You have passed the trial of judgment," Thyler said. "You have proven humanity's way can endure the impossible. The question now is what you will do with that power." Elias met their eyes evenly. "I'll keep proving them wrong. Until they stop thinking, they can decide what humanity is." The chamber darkened. Across Vera Prime, across the command, across the galaxy, a decision was being made. Humanity's fate hung in the balance. The war games were no longer trials. They were a reckoning, and Elias Keen was at the center of it. The chamber remained silent long after Elias Keen's victory in the trial of judgment. The representatives of the United Galactic Command looked upon him as though weighing the fate of but Elias was something else entirely. He struck without pattern. He moved without hesitation. Every attack was instinct, every defense improvisation. The battlefield bent around them as if testing him. Hours passed. Time fractured. Elias fought through waves of enemies, storms of destruction, and shifting realities. Every moment was a battle not just for survival, but for the meaning of war itself. Finally, he reached the Titan. Its core pulsed with war energy, the convergence of the command's greatest power. Elias raised his gauntlet. Every movement before this had led to this moment not as a victory but as proof. He struck. The core burst in a blinding wave of light. The battlefield fractured, folding in on itself. Silence followed. Elias stood alone, gauntlet smoking, body trembling. Around him, the ascendant Titan lay shattered not as a trophy but as a warning. The tribunal chamber reformed around him. Virithos, Thyler, Sauron all stood before him. Silence stretched between them before Thyler spoke. "Cadet Keen, you have won." Virithos's mandibles clicked sharply. "You have not merely survived the Ascendant War. You have rewritten what war means." Sauron's glow pulsed with slow certainty. "You have proven that unpredictability is the ultimate force. Humanity is no longer a student of war. Humanity is a teacher." Elias looked across the chamber. "Good, then let's teach them." The chamber darkened. Outside, across Vera Prime, across fleets, worlds, and star systems, ripples spread. The United Galactic Command had been changed. The war games had ended. The war had begun. Somewhere in the galaxy, a voice spoke across comm channels. "Humanity has stepped beyond the arena. Who will stand against them?" The answer would not come quietly. The victory in the Ascendant War had not faded into silence. Across the United Galactic Command, corridors of power and warships alike were alive with discussion and dissent. Elias Keen's triumph was no longer simply a personal victory. It was the spark of something far greater. Somewhere in the galaxy, alliances began to fracture. The Hall of Command had become a chamber of unrest. Representatives from dozens of races gathered in tense silence, their eyes fixed on the central dais where Virithos, Thyler, and Sauron convened. Elias was summoned without ceremony. The moment he stepped into the chamber, dozens of gazes turned to him, some filled with awe, others with suspicion, many with something darker, fear. Virithos spoke first. "Cadet Keen, you have done what no warrior in the history of the command has achieved. You have survived trials designed to break the strongest of us. You have defeated the Ascendant Titan, and you have rewritten the rules of war." Thyler's voice was slow, deliberate. "But your victories have fractured unity. They have sparked a debate whether humanity is to be welcomed as a teacher or feared as a threat." Sauron hovered closer, light pulsing with gravity. "The Ascendant War has not ended. It has begun a war of ideologies. Some within the command call for your recognition as a new path of war. Others call for your removal and humanity's eradication." A ripple of murmurs moved through the chamber. Representatives from the core worlds, the oldest and most disciplined factions, voiced concern over humanity's unpredictability. "It is dangerous," one said. "It undermines the very structure that holds the command together." Others, smaller races whose forces had suffered under the command's rigid doctrines, spoke in support. "Humanity's way is evolution. It is survival," one declared. "We must embrace it or be left behind." Virithos turned his mandibles sharply toward Elias. "You stand now at the center of a storm. The tribunal has decided that your final trial is not a test of skill, it is a test of consequence. You will lead humanity in the first reckoning. This is not a war game. This is a war that will decide humanity's place in the galaxy." The chamber hushed. The phrase carried weight beyond combat. The First Reckoning was the name given to conflicts that redefined alliances, races, and entire galaxies. To lead humanity in such a war was to carry not just a gauntlet, but a burden heavier than any weapon. Elias met their gaze evenly. "If it's war they want, I'll give them war, but on our terms." Thyler's form pulsed with slow intensity. "Then understand what you accept. The First Reckoning will not be a single battle. It will be a convergence, fleets, armies, ideologies clashing. You will face not just the command, but every race that fears change." Sauron's light dimmed slightly. "They will come for you. They will come for humanity. And you must decide, do you stand as soldier or as something more?" The chamber darkened as a holographic map unfurled between them. Across countless star systems, points of conflict bloomed like living wounds. The map pulsed with movement, fleets shifting, war zones flaring into life. At the center, a symbol emerged, humanity's mark. Virithos's voice was low, deliberate. "The First Reckoning begins at the crossroads. It is where the command will judge humanity and decide if your way of war is to stand or fall." Elias stepped forward, gauntlet glowing faintly. "Then I'll meet them there, not just to fight but to prove them wrong. Humanity will not be ruled by their fear." The chamber fell silent. Outside Vera Prime, across the nexus of war, the galaxy shifted. Fleets moved. War zones flared. Somewhere in the void, the first signal was sent. The First Reckoning had begun, and humanity was at its center. The crossroads was unlike any battlefield in the history of the United Galactic Command. It was not a place, but a convergence, a shifting nexus of realities where entire fleets, battle zones, and war systems overlapped. Stars burned in impossible alignments. Gravity bent in strange currents. The air itself was alive with war. Cadet Elias Keen stood at the helm of humanity's flagship, the Resolute. Around him, a fleet assembled that had never existed before. Human vessels alongside allied warships from smaller factions, joined under one standard. They were the first sign that humanity's way of war had become something greater than a trial. It had become a movement. Across the void, fleets of the command gathered. The core worlds, the oldest fleets of the galaxy, stood in opposition, flanked by those who feared humanity's unpredictability. Above them loomed the remnants of the Ascendant Titan, a twisted memorial to the trial Elias had won, now reforged as a command vessel of unmatched scale. Virithos's voice came through the comlink. "This is the crossroads, Cadet Keen. The First Reckoning begins now. Win and humanity stands as equal among the command. Lose and it is erased." Elias nodded once, his gauntlet tightening. "Then let's finish this." The first wave hit without warning. Fleets collided in oceans of fire. Starships tore each other apart in bursts of energy. The crossroads roared with destruction. Gravity storms twisted reality. Time fractured. The war was a living thing. Elias moved among it all like a storm. His fleet adapted under his command, shifting formations without order, striking without pattern. His voice was calm but unwavering. "Forget protocol. Move where they least expect you." Around him, human tactics became legend. Fleets split and reformed. Strike teams vanished into gravity folds only to reappear behind enemy lines. Entire command squadrons were dismantled before their opponents could adapt. Humanity fought without pattern, without precedent. Above the chaos, the ascendant Titan loomed, commanding fleets as if the war itself were an extension of its will. It moved with purpose, striking at the heart of humanity's forces. Elias knew this was the moment it would all come down to. He ordered his fleet forward. All forces converge, no formation, no